What are you guys talking about up here?
Where I'm talking about this podcast. I know the hosts. Welcome to You Do, a podcast where we explore everything queer, Asian, and identity, and get into everything that you do.
I'm your host, Vince Buendicho.
And I'm Matt Vo. Welcome to episode 5.
Episode 5. Whoa, we got here.
We have another very special guest. We're recording this on the 14th of March, and currently March is Women's History Month. And so our guest is a woman, a very strong, is a very awesome woman. And so, yeah, we're so excited to get into this episode and like learn about our guest.
So I guess to start off, Matt, how do you do this week?
How I'm doing this week, I feel like I went through like a lot of like emotional roller coasters, as you know, when we talk offline. I think just in terms of like love life and dating and stuff, I just am not feeling the most like energetic about it. But it's been definitely a trying week with
Yeah.
that sort of stuff in my life. But I think the response we got from our last episode with our guest it's just been like it made me really emotional because we feel like we're not doing much when we're doing these podcasts, but then like we have listeners in Malaysia now that are like reaching out, and I think that's like I never really imagined this podcast to go in that way at all. Like I hope it connected to people, but it's just now that it's actually happened and we're getting the response, I just like it made me really like emotional that we are connecting with people. This weekend is actually my 6-year Americaversary.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, March 15 is the day I flew in, and then I started working on March 18th. So I'm
Wait, so you didn't even have time to like to recover for like 3 days of traveling? You just went. I didn't know that. Whoa.
No, I had like I was still very very jet lagged when I first got here,
Oh my
and
god.
then they took my headshot on the first day, and I hate like that photo. Thankfully, we don't use that photo anymore, but I absolutely hated it. And I had like actually have like similar hair back then than what I do now, and different glasses. But oh my god, I was such a mess. But the first restaurant that I ever went to in America was the Denny's down the street from my
Oh,
office.
Denny's.
Oh god, it was horrible. I was like, what is this brown water that they serve you at these diners? I can't believe Americans can drink this. Um yeah, tonight I'm actually going to celebrate by my friends had an idea and they're like, we should go somewhere that you
Cheap.
haven't been in like an American chain. And so I'm going to the Cheesecake Factory
Oh,
for the
I was
first
about to say
time.
go to Cheesecake Factory. I was
I've
like,
never been. I'm so excited. I
oh,
mean, like, I went
it's
to Red
awesome.
Lobster last year, and it just changed my world.
That's a bit dramatic.
No, Red Lobster is so good. If you like, one thing about me, I love like a booth. I love booth dining. It's
You
just
also love Victorian chairs. We get it.
I love Victorian chairs. I love booth dining. I love dirty martinis. That's all I need in my life.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, I think it's been a good week. It's been a good
Yeah.
week.
That's good.
Vince, how do you do?
Well, the sun is out. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so before this episode, I said to Vince, he cannot mention the sun anymore. Every episode on his how do you do, like your emotional capacity like revolves around the sun, I feel.
Honestly, it is. I'm like a houseplant. If the houseplant, if the sun is out, I'm like revitalized. And today's the only day in the week that the sun is out. If you know, you know. If you live in Vancouver, you know that it's like it rains for. Anyway, I'm not gonna be a weather report man, but no, my week has been interesting. I just applied for my PR here in Canada, so that's kind of
Yay,
been a big milestone as well.
congratulations.
Thank you. Wow, we're doing a lot of things for March, a lot of immigration
We're doing
stuff,
it.
just moving in and all that stuff. But no, it's been a really good week. It's been up and down. I think a lot of things I've realized about relationship wise. I'm still going through a lot of things that had happened with the breakup. So I'm like,
Mhm.
it's kind of resurfacing in weird ways, and I'm having to face them by asking like weird questions to like colleagues or like other people. I'm like, hey, if you were in this position, what would you do? Or if you were this happened to you, what would you do? Because I'm like, I don't know who to like have this conversation with.
And
Um,
also, this is your first, like, relationship
yeah,
and breakup, so it's you're
yeah.
going
So
through a lot of these new emotions for the first time.
yeah, and I thought that like, time heals all wounds and all that stuff, which it does, but it's also a lot of like random pockets of moments where you're being exposed to things where it's triggering and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with this. Like I didn't know how to deal with this the first time, and now I'm like a few months in and I'm still don't know how to do it. And it's like it's fine. Everyone goes through it differently. But for me, I'm kind of just like, I just want to get it over and done with.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like a process, and I don't know, I just felt very like damaged. Okay, that's a strong word, but I guess I was, if I'm still talking about it, with that relationship just because of how much it actually meant to me. And then it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And I think realizing that it's like it could have been amazing and all this stuff, but it didn't turn out to be was a big slap to the face. Yeah, it was just like a really shitty situation. And I'm just having to experience a lot of that by myself.
Mhm.
So, and I know that I have you guys, and I know that like I talk to a lot of people, but it's just not,
You have
it's
to,
not going to be the same.
like, you have to process it yourself sometimes and
Yeah.
deal
And it,
with, like, these, roller coaster emotions.
yeah. And I think that's why I keep mentioning the sun is because I'm like, I always see it. I'm just like, it's a new day. It's an amazing day. I know that it's been a rough couple of months, but it's like looking up. The sun is out. Like that's all I can ask for, and that's all I can live for at
Mhm.
the moment.
Do you
But
think
aside from
do
that,
you think you need a rebound person? Just
good question.
just like a rebound person to, you know, get you up and going again.
Yeah. Oh, up and going. I'm not sure. I've never been that kind of gal, but who knows? Like it's spring is here. Spring is sprung. So who
Yeah,
knows?
time to get out on
Yeah.
the streets.
Oh Jesus, I'm going to a rave tonight, so I'm like,
A
you
rave?
know, like hey, yeah.
Wow.
I saw the time and it was like at 10 p.m. and I'm like, oh my God, why did I was
Oh,
like
you're too old for this?
I signed up to this at like peak extrovert moment, and I was like, yeah, I'll go to that, and now I'm like, do I want to?
Just kidding. Yeah.
But that's okay. That's well, it's been up and down, but again, it's like I think whenever it hits like Friday and then I'm doing all these amazing things, I'm like, yeah, I freaking love life. Yeah. But speaking of like bountiful of energy and love and life, I think our next guest is just the definition of that. And I
Mhm.
think she's been such a special person in my life and our lives than when we started uni, when we met her like 12, 13 years ago, I think. I'm looking at the time
Also
now.
2013.
2013, yeah. Like big moments, I think milestones for all of us. But yeah, she's just been a very like awesome person to be around with, and I think I'm just very, very much inspired by her. Without further ado, she's the beard
Yes.
of all beards. What's the going go juice? She's the Mary from J Block. This is Mary Go.
Hi,
Hi,
Mary.
hey, hey, Matt, hey, Vince, love of my
What's
life.
up? Oh, first love of your life. First.
Yes. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I love the beginning of the podcast, like the you do, the checking ins. And it's just
Yeah,
nice to know that there's, yeah, different things that people are going through, and
Yeah.
that's okay. Good or bad.
absolutely.
There's no good,
Yeah.
there's no bad. It's just life.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think we try to foster that type of talk because as growing up Asian, we really don't speak about our feelings a lot. Within our family, it's just like we got to roll with the punches and we never really express them. So I think having our how do you do segment I think is important because
Yeah.
we are checking in with each other, checking in with our guests, and I think it's okay to be vulnerable, and that's our way to connect to people, you know. Mary is one of our friends from uni. We met in 2013. We're going to talk about her career transition from architecture to teaching in this episode, and a lot about her identity. But before we do that, we'd love to know, like, how do you do this week, Mary?
Yeah, I think it's the perfect time to ask that question because, as you know, people may or may not know, beginning of this week we had a major natural disaster in Brisbane. A huge cyclone hit, the middle of Brisbane. But things are all good now. The sun is shining. Vince, you'd love that. But it was a pretty scary lead up.
Yeah.
People were panic buying again. Wounds
Yeah.
from
Just so
COVID
stupid.
were opening up. Obviously news, I think they did an okay job at, keeping it not too sensationalized.
Right.
It was just more like information sharing, getting people prepared. So I think Brisbane was very prepared this time.
I don't think
Um,
we've ever lived in like a time of cyclone back in Brisbane. Like we've never experienced that, right?
So it's been
yeah,
very mild.
yeah. I think the last major disaster was the 2011 floods.
Mm.
We learned this in uni, like the sort of every 10-year flood. So yeah, that was sort of how the week kicked off this week. So luckily
Mm,
we're okay. We didn't have any damages or outages or things like that. But it sort of kicked off the vibe of the week. It's sort of
Yeah.
the winds of change, so to speak. So this week's been
right.
very pivotal. Schools had to close, but thankfully they opened, so I got to do some teaching. I actually had a job interview 2 days ago
Oh my
at a
gosh.
school. Yes, I was interviewed by a panel of really experienced teachers. And then, yeah, today's episode. So it's been a cyclone of a week, metaphorically. And
A week full of of interviews here and
Yeah.
there.
yeah. And I think that's how the year kicked off, was been in a pretty unstable kind of condition since the beginning of the week, but in a good way. Like a lot of opportunities came, and I just, some ones that I really wanted opportunities, but I didn't get, but it just opened doors to other ones.
Of course.
And yeah, so even if I don't get this job that I interviewed for, that's okay. Like I think
Right.
that there's always going to be other doors to open. So it's pivotal week.
You're so good at just adapting to
Yeah.
high stress or just like
Hmm.
change. I think there's been so much change in your life, your upbringing, and through career, through life too. I feel like Vince and I admire a lot from you, that you are so like adaptable to whatever comes your way. We admire that a lot.
It's one of the things that I actually was very much inspired by you the first time that we met, just by how fearless you were, and you were just like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Oh my god, you can do that? Like that's allowed? Um I think it's just as a really great example of what you can actually achieve if you just do it. You and I talk offline, and I think I'm always just very much enlightened and just very I don't know, always elevated whenever we finish a conversation. So yeah, it's really wonderful that you're here with us and that you're doing okay back home. And I know that it's super stressful for everyone.
Yeah.
But it looks like you have power.
We do, and we have
Yeah.
internet, thank God. I was going to say it's interesting when you brought up the word fearless and
Mm,
about change, what you said, Matt. And I don't think I've given the space to really think about what has driven me, whether it's actually fearlessness that drives me, or is it fear itself that's pushing me to change all the time. So I definitely, I think that will definitely tie into what we're going to talk today about, with an Asian identity and
yeah.
growing up as a third culture kid. So I think today will be, really good to explore that.
Talking about like adapting, I want to go back to one of the phone calls that I had with you in 2019 when I first moved here. I remember exactly like where I had it. I was walking like along the streets. I used to live in Long Beach and in this like historic area, and I think maybe this was like my 6th month that I've moved here, or and this was at night. I called you and we talked about how my life has been in America, but you like I just felt so uncertain about moving here and if I want to go back, or just the career change and transition to America. And you reminded me like you need to like reflect on, like, even back in uni, you need to reflect on the skills and the person you have become a few years ago. Like they're totally different people. Like you've grown a lot, and you remind me of that. So I do want to like thank you for that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad it made an impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think talking about change, like we'd love to know what your transition from architecture, we finished uni together, and then you became registered as an architect and then decided to pursue teaching. Can you run us through like how that career transition happened, and talking about fear, like was there a fear around architecture and a future in that?
I guess I have to go back a little bit because there actually was another profession I was interested in
Yeah,
before architecture.
that's right.
Yeah.
It was business,
Which
right?
it was, yeah, it
Yeah.
was business. I have to go back to it because I don't think I would have pursued architecture if I didn't do that little stint in business,
Mhm.
because it's who I met at that time that led me to doing architecture. And, so obviously, yeah, year 12, end of high school, I don't know about you guys, but I always felt pressured to know exactly what you need to do as soon as high school
Oh
finished,
my
right?
gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like you
You're
have to
so
go to
young.
uni.
I
I
know.
know.
Make your life decision in 2 days. It's like, "Oh my
I
god."
know, yeah. And I guess money was a big pressure too. Like, find a job
Mhm.
that makes a lot of money. Like, it doesn't matter what you're interested in. And at that time, I was interested in art, in design, in graphics. And I was like, I'm not really sure if there's money to be made there. So I'll just go the easy way out and go and do business, which was fine. Like, the first semester was okay. But I met some really interesting people in that course when I studied Mandarin as a minor,
Mhm.
like to study the language of Mandarin to pick up what I had lost. And I met a really great classmate there who introduced me to another friend. And that friend actually introduced me to, you guys would know, Pete and Pat. Shout out to Pete and Pat. Yeah, so my friend that introduced me to them, I was kind of sharing my dilemma with him. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not really sure about business. Like, I think I want to explore things that I'm interested in, like in design. And he said, oh, well, I have a friend who studies industrial design, and I have another friend who studies architecture. So, like, I'll introduce you to them, um, and see what you think. And so, long story short, I ended up going with architecture because I thought architecture was like very mathematical and engineering
Mhm.
based. So that's why I didn't pursue it. But my friend Pat, he said, does architecture is more about people and places and creating positive spaces. I was like, oh, hell yeah, that sounds great. So I think it's all interconnected because it's about the people that you meet along the way. Like, they really
Mhm.
inspired me to be
Mhm.
brave and take that leap. And I think this goes back to how you guys feel when I share with you stories of change, that when you hear it from another human being, you kind of go, oh, they've done it. It's safe and
Mhm.
they survived and they're coming out of it. So, it makes me feel like I can step onto that platform. And when I do, it's not going to fall down and collapse underneath me. So,
Mhm.
yeah, and then I jumped into architecture. I met you guys like in week 1, week 2, and, and you guys played a part in making me still feel safe in architecture, because it was a rough road for us,
Oh
wasn't
my
it?
god, yeah.
Like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it really was. I'd say it's probably one of the hardest degrees out
Yeah.
there.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's not,
I
it's,
feel like I say this all the time. I'm like, once I've done architecture, I feel like I can do
Do
anything
whatever.
else.
I
Yeah.
Like if I
agree.
wanted to go to medical school, I could. Like
Yeah.
Okay.
or be a lawyer or something, you know?
There you go. So let's take it down a notch. Like, I love you, but
seriously,
Yeah.
like it
yeah,
just trains your
yeah,
work ethic to just really grind
Mm.
and
yeah. It makes you very tenacious.
And we were exposed to so many things that like ordinary people wouldn't like. I think the biggest things that made us grow was all the critiques and
Mhm.
presentations we had to do because we were so vulnerable.
you know, talking about critique trauma.
Oh my god, yeah. Matt, do you want to
I
share that
still,
story?
you know, third year, I'm gonna call this freaking tutor out because now we have a platform.
Use it. Destroy him.
No, in
Drag
my
him.
this is third year semester 2 or semester 1. I had like some pavilion design where there were hanging plants, right? You know, it's a thing. Like you have trees and plants that grow on these pavilion sort of structures and trellises. And then he called me out. He's like, hanging plants? I don't that's not a thing. You're in third year. You should know that this is not realistic at all. And I'm just like, okay, I'll do better.
I'll
But
see you next week, I
I'll
guess.
see you next week. But he was a guest crit, and I was
Uh,
like, you bastard.
You were
no,
also like,
nothing.
yeah, you were like the
You know
25th
nothing.
person to present because I remember that day. It was a long
It was a
day.
long day. He was
And it's
just
just
like,
like,
I've had
Mm.
enough.
yeah, literally. It was just like, let's wrap it up and let's like destroy all the 5 people that's about to present.
Yeah.
And just like, I need to get out of here.
He's like, this kid looks easy to break.
Yeah. The library is open.
I have I'm gonna be a guest crit in the interior design studio this week, and so I'm gonna rip these students.
Oh my
Ooh.
god. Or
Just
like I
kidding.
told you, break, the trauma that's happened.
And
The
then
generational trauma.
Yeah.
yeah, and then 10 years later, they're going to start a podcast and then talk
Yeah.
about that one guest tutor.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, we met in architecture school, obviously, and yeah, exactly what you said, Matt. I think after doing that, I felt even stronger to like tackle on something else. And like, I guess talking about the transition from architecture to teaching, I think sometimes people think when people have a career change, they leave a place because it was toxic or it was
Mhm.
bad, or they wanted like to go somewhere where the grass was greener on the other side. But it wasn't like that at all for me. Like I still appreciate design and architecture and everything that we went through. I just felt it probably didn't suit me the best in how I wanted to, give my love and work back to the
Mhm.
community. Because I've always wanted to do something that gave back and was meaningful, whether that was through design or that's
Yeah.
through education. And, but I'm a firm believer, and, my mom passed this down to me, is that try to always finish what you started.
Yeah.
Because,
Mhm.
things are always going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning or in the middle, but like you haven't given it full justice if you haven't, like, seen the full cycle of it. So I was like, okay, I'll just finish it. I'll, finish my masters. I'll get registration, and if I still feel this way, then, I'll see from there. So around that time was when my partner and I, AJ, we moved to Melbourne, and literally 6 months later, COVID-19
COVID. Yeah.
happened,
Oh yes.
and Melbourne was hit. One of the cities hit the hardest, with lockdowns, with curfews, with limited distance traveling. But that I actually look fondly back at it,
Mhm. Mm.
because it's like being in such a reclusive, solitary state really blocked everything out,
Yeah.
like blocked a lot of external factors out, and it really gave you time to think, like decisions all about
Mm.
yourself, rather than going, oh, my friends are all registered, or oh, my
Yeah.
friends work in a great firm. Like,
Like less distractions.
Less stimulation.
yeah. So I thought, yeah, I did a little reflecting, and I was like, what actually drives me? What actually inspires me? And I'm more of a like present, like interpersonal person rather than kind of sitting behind a computer screen and like designing spaces and things. So, and I had cousins who had children, and I respond really well with them because I still remember what it's like being a child or being like left out. So I thought, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. And then I finished my registration, and literally 2 months after that, I'm like, bye.
I mean, did you ever think about trying to transition into like teaching architecture? Like, was that ever on the plate?
Yeah, definitely. And it still is to this day. Speaking of a pivotal point in my life, I'm still trying to find out what my teaching style is and what my
Okay.
teaching area is. So it's still definitely on the cards. Yeah. So who knows? It could still be that.
Yeah.
Or I could teach PE. Who knows?
Why not?
You can do
Why
whatever.
not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the world is your oyster. If we know anything about you, you can pretty much do whatever you want, and you just do it. One thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was when you mentioned that you like to give back to community and have that like immediate response to what that give back would look like. I think I saw that at play when we went to China together. When obviously I don't speak Mandarin, or is it Cantonese? I think it's Mandarin. It's Mandarin, right?
Mandarin. Yeah.
Mandarin, yeah. So I remember this very vividly because our friend Grace and we kind of didn't know how to interact when we had that free time, but you literally corralled all the Chinese students. I knew that you were also like trying to kind of, you were still going through your Mandarin like minor, so your Mandarin wasn't like perfect, but you gave it a go. You managed to like communicate, and I was kind of just observing from the back and was like, wow, is this, you literally just got all of them up and you were like teaching them. And I thought that was going to be like a pivotal moment for you because I think that's when it may have sparked your interest in like that you can connect regardless of what like I guess language barrier there is. Like you still found a way to connect with the students or the kids, and you still imparted knowledge to them,
Mm.
Yeah.
regardless of any kind of like barrier. And a lot of us that were in that trip, even though we tried, like I felt like you really managed to like get through to them in a way that I think is meaningful for them and is also meaningful for you.
Yeah, I always forget about that, and like I
Yeah,
really
I have
appreciate that
photo
you.
proof. Literally, you were like pointing, and everyone's like crowding around you, and I was like a proud mom, just like
I was actually talking about, okay, this is Brisbane, and when
yeah,
you come to visit Brisbane, you
yeah.
want to go to the suburb called Sunnybank because that's the only place you're going to get good food.
Facts.
See this? Don't go to the north side. There's nothing there. You want to
Oh
go
my
south
god.
of the
Yeah.
snake. No,
Where
yeah,
where do you get like, I feel like because of this leadership, this like nurturing sort of, you're just such a good like middle person for every, even in group assignments and whatnot. Do you feel like you get that from someone in your life?
yeah. I think it comes from so many different places, and the thing that pops up the most is, and I've been really thinking about it this past 2 days, is the idea of growing up as an outsider, as always growing up as someone on the fringe, someone who's not quite there or quite belonging to one specific place, but you're always like in limbo. Um, and I think this will touch on a little bit about, my heritage, my cultural heritage. Do I identify as, just to give some context, my mom is Filipino Chinese and my dad is Taiwanese. I was born in Taiwan, but I grew up in Australia. And literally what I just said is how I always introduce myself to
Mm,
people. Like, oh, where are you from?
Yeah.
um, and that's what that's what I just say because I don't know if I'm like, culturally I feel Australian. Like most of my knowledge in my home is Australia, but how I look
Yeah.
is, Asian. But I can't even speak my home language like half as much as, and I grew up like in my younger years here. I didn't like move here like later in life like you did, Vince, or later in life like your friend you did. So they have like a strong. You guys still have a strong tie to your home, but me, I don't like. And the
Mm.
family that I moved to Australia with, they're more my mum's side, my Filipino side, and they look different to me. Like to them, I look Chinese.
Right.
And then when I go back to Taiwan, they're like, you can't even speak Mandarin. You have this Western way of looking at things. So I've always felt like an outsider. I never felt like I belonged to one place. I don't know how it changed, but I think that can actually be an advantage as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, you see things that most people in a way that
Yeah.
most people don't. You feel things
100%.
in a way people don't, and so you observe things like in the way people don't, and then from those observations you go, oh, we could do it this way, or we could do it that way, whereas everyone else sees it the way that they've always
Yeah.
seen it. Yeah, and also being, as Matt, you would know, like being an only child too. You've had a lot of
Yeah.
time to really know yourself, and you haven't been, I guess, judged with another sibling as well. Like you have this room and space um, to really explore who you are.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Um,
No, I totally
yeah.
resonate with all of what you've said, and now that we've like moved outside of Australia and then going home to Brisbane, sometimes I don't feel like I'm from home. I just there is this like living on the outside, watching from the outside, and even like going to Vietnam at the end of last year, I was spent like a whole month there. Even though I can speak Vietnamese not that well, but still be able to communicate on a very, basic level, there are times where I question like how are they not seeing that I'm Vietnamese? They talk to
Mm,
me in English, or they
Wow. Yeah.
don't think that I'm Vietnamese, even though is it like the way that I'm walking, the way I'm dressing? What is it about me? Like we are from the same blood,
Mhm.
but
it's the way you
the
smell.
it's the way I smell. They smell in and out in me or something.
Ew.
But like
We
it
stink.
also just made me, feel a little bit like displaced because
Mm,
I went to Vietnamese school as a kid. I worked really hard as a kid to be able to learn the language,
mm,
and I'm so glad I did because I can connect with, elders in my family. But then when I go to Vietnam, I feel like an outsider. You have to be really grounded in who you are and your identity to face different cultural sort of backgrounds once you move around, and it comes back to that adaptability thing too.
How about you, Vince? How do you feel? Like, have you always felt like you were on the fringe, like culturally, and like, because you moved to Australia when you were like about 8
I was
or
10.
12? Yeah.
I moved to Australia when I was 10, and it's interesting hearing you guys talk about I guess as children of diaspora, where we have to go grow up in a different environment, but also a different culture, and we just have to kind of assimilate, but still
Mm,
have this connection to like our motherland. But it's always in question of whether am I Filipino enough, or am I Vietnamese enough, or am I Taiwanese enough. And I
mm,
actually, even though that I grew up in the Philippines, I mean, they were my like formative years, but I was actually very much excited to go to Australia, and I was embracing the culture. But at the same time, I think I lost. It was a risk of losing my Filipino culture, not in a way that I'm like abolishing it, but I always felt somewhat disconnected with that part of myself growing up. Just because I think it was, in hindsight, I think it was also because I was dealing with my own identity crisis of my own sexuality. So it kind of like had to take a step back, where I was hiding myself both culturally and I guess my sexual identity, to a
mm,
point where I was just kind of existing, which was like not really the greatest feeling. Because I still remember going to like Filipino parties and all this stuff, participating,
mm,
but I felt kind of out of place. Even when we go back to the Philippines, there were times that I've talked to my sister where I'm like, I'm not really enjoying it because I can't really connect with my relatives or the culture here. And I don't know if it's because like I'm hiding myself because I don't want to show too much of myself, because they might
mm,
think I'm too gay or too this or too that, that I'm like, now I'm just going to completely just put myself in a position where I'm actually going to be an outsider. And it took
Mm.
a while for me to kind of get out of that mentality. Obviously, coming out really helped. And now I think I'm more, in a weird way, trying to embrace my Filipino heritage. And one thing that actually that I had just a flashback of is when we actually first met, Mary. I was wearing a Filipino jacket and my bright like orange headphones, and you clocked it straight away. It's like, are you from Philippines? It's like, what is obvious?
Didn't you bring adobo for like lunch?
Or something. But
I'm
I think it
sure.
was, yeah, I think it was your intrigue, and because I didn't know you were
Mm.
Filipino until you mentioned it. Um,
Mm.
and I think, yeah, it was definitely your intrigue and your questions that made me really like, um, I was like, oh wow, like there's this person who really wants to really connect with like their Filipino side, but here I am trying to be like X, Y, and Z. And I
Mm.
definitely think that comes from like growing up and just consuming Western media and wanting to be a certain type of way or a certain standard of beauty because I didn't see myself in what I was watching. So a part of myself was kind of ashamed that I was like trying to be someone else,
You try to
and that's fine. Like,
disassociate it a little
yeah,
bit. Yeah.
Mm.
in a way where I'm like, that's the standard, right? That's what I should aim for, even though I can't bleach my skin. Well, you can, what you shouldn't. But now, but now you kind of like understand of like, no, I want to celebrate my culture. I want to celebrate
What
like
like triggered
everything that is
what
about me.
triggered that though?
Mm.
I'm so curious because, before moving to LA, because LA is such a diverse
Hmm.
city and I never had like close Vietnamese friends until I moved to LA. And back home,
Mm.
I never really embraced my Vietnamese heritage. I wasn't like that proud to be like
You
Asian
weren't
or
wearing ao
Vietnamese.
dai every day.
I was not. Absolutely not. And like in high school, I never had like we had POC friends, but then
Yeah,
no Vietnamese friends that I felt close with. But then when I moved to LA, I found a
Mm.
Vietnamese community. That's when I really like started to embrace culture. Like,
yeah.
is that I guess you guys is like understanding of like how you start to embrace your culture and heritage? Like once you feel like you have a community?
Yeah, I definitely felt that way when I moved to Melbourne, even. Melbourne's just such a rich, diverse city. And it wasn't even that I couldn't find anyone else who was. It's very rare I find someone who's half Taiwanese, half Filipino who grew up in Australia. But when I moved to Melbourne, everyone was from a different place.
Yeah.
Like when I moved to the architecture firm down there, there were people from Croatia, from the Philippines, from Italy, from Australia, from New Zealand, from
Yeah.
Ireland. And I think everyone felt the same way. Yeah, so I think that gave me the courage to express like the food that I grew up with, or the culture that 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 I experienced, because everyone was different. Yeah, because people were also proud to talk about their culture. Like
Mm,
those from Croatia would be like, "Oh, my grandma or grandpa, made this beautiful dish," or they would bring in like diverse dishes for their lunch, or they would say that they're going like back home. But even like in Brisbane, I didn't feel like people felt proud to talk about, or like even brought food that was a bit different.
Right.
So
I feel like it's a little like you stick to your own lane in
yeah.
your heritage and you don't
mm,
really embrace other cultures. And I don't know what it is. I just like I can't put my finger on it. It's like anytime I go back to Brisbane or when I come here, there's this level of maybe like microaggression or
Mm.
I don't know what it is.
mm,
It's very segregated. Yeah. I mean, with teaching, is there a way that you think that you embrace this multicultural sort of uh, like heritage for your students and teach them about being able to, you know,
Embrace our culture.
embrace it? Yeah.
I think it's showing them that I'm comfortable with embracing
Mm.
myself. Because that's what gave me the bravery to come out, and be proud of where I came from. Because I heard,
Sorry.
guys,
Guys,
I have a secret.
exclusive.
Sorry, I had to bite my tongue. I was like, what is?
Mary's coming
I
out.
have a
This is Mary's
secret.
coming out story.
There's something about Mary. What was I saying? Yeah, show them that it's okay to come out. Yeah, and I think really understanding where the students came from. Like I did a prac, my last prac was with year two, and this was in a suburb where the demographic was primarily Australians or Caucasian people. And there was one student who I think his parents were from Hong Kong, and I could just the way he handled school, I could definitely resonate that. Like he was always trying his best. He was always trying to finish things really quickly. Like this is a 7-year-old kid. He was really hard on himself academically. You know, just for year seven, he was just always trying to be good. And I think he thought he was in trouble for something because his classmate came up and he was like, "Oh, so and so said I was really dumb. He said that I said the wrong thing." And then the kid from Hong Kong came and he was like, "No, I didn't. I swear I didn't." Um, and he could feel like, I think trying to tell me, he could feel like something bad was going to happen, like whether I was going to yell at him
Like
or
consequences.
yeah, but I didn't. I was just trying to listen to both sides of the story. And then even before I even got to say a word, the kid from Hong Kong just started breaking down and crying and hitting himself in the head, like punishing himself.
Wow.
Like he was just so hard on himself. And it actually really got me because like, yeah, it's just like love and self-love comes from such an early part of your life.
Yeah.
And to see someone as young as 7, like hating himself already for doing nothing wrong, it's just, yeah, it's really hard to see from an outsider's perspective.
Absolutely. And the work that you do in teaching, Mary, I think can absolutely change their trajectory in adulthood. You know, like recently, I feel like we're tapping into a lot of our childhood, just not traumas, but the pressures of growing up as like Asian and going through all these things alone sometimes. Your role in school is so important to just that's why teachers are so underrated and so underappreciated because you can just have that one person that believes in you and to show you like making mistakes is okay, making like it's
Mm.
okay to just embrace failure, you know. Sometimes
Mm.
parents aren't natural teachers, but as a teacher yourself, as an educator, you have such great power to be able to change that.
Yeah, I forget that sometimes. So, yeah, thank you for saying that.
Is there like has there been a teacher in your life that has inspired you or someone in your life that's inspired you?
I think definitely my mom. My mom, yeah, is definitely one of my biggest inspirations because it's always just been her and I growing up. I didn't have any brothers or sisters. Dad passed away when I was really young, so it's just always been, yeah, the me and Maria show. I think she really like gave me the perspective, that kind of insightful perspective on change. You know, because a lot of change in our lives was out of our control. Actually not out of our control. The change was done for the greater good, and then obviously like little changes had to happen around that. Adjustments had to happen around that. So she changed my perspective of change as being something scary, unstable, something bad's going to happen too. Change is a good thing. Means that you're growing. It means that we're going somewhere better, or we're going to be someone better. And that change is scary, but it's okay, and change is going to happen regardless or not. So my mom like always said, her quote was like, the only constant in life is change.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. The
I love
only
that.
constant in life is change. Because, yeah, I think from early on, I had to handle death and grief really early. Had to handle moving cities and countries very early, had to handle moving schools very early. My mom, I don't think she ever sheltered anything from me. And she was a teacher too. She was a teacher. She did a degree in teaching in the Philippines and became a teacher in Taiwan. So she's so used to change, but her view on change is so adventurous and so like exciting. Like she makes change
Yeah.
sound so exciting.
That's an awesome thing to impart on someone. And I think like just I've witnessed you and your mom's relationship, and I think it's just beautiful. It's a testament to how she brought you up and how much like I don't know, you just have so much love to give, and I think it definitely stems from the fact that your mom loves you so much,
Yeah.
and that like that love that you're nurturing now um will now be transferred to like your kids, the children that you're going to be teaching. And I think like you're definitely the right person, and definitely like the right person to break any kind of generational trauma that we're experiencing as young Asian kids, because you understand the nuances of growing up multicultural as a multicultural like young child, but also displaced child, and also just like you have all these things that may be viewed as negative, but in actuality
Mm,
you turn it into your strength.
Mm.
And now the children you're going to be teaching is that they're going to also view that as their own strength, that it's okay that I'm being raised by one person or by one parent.
mm,
It's okay that I'm different from everyone else. That's totally fine. That's not a limitation. If anything,
mm.
that should be celebrated. The work that you're doing now and moving forward, I think, is just going to be so impactful, and you're going to really reap that reward every day that you step into that room, and you're going to change someone's life.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, talking about like change, what I think I want to know, like, what sort of legacy do you want to leave behind, Mary?
Yeah, I think to embrace change. Yeah. You can't grow if you don't change in some form or not. Just like a plant, like it needs to go through change and cycles.
Yeah.
Um, it needs sun, it needs water, but it needs support. Yeah,
Yeah.
change is definitely not easy, and I can
Yeah.
see why people stay in a comfortable place
Mhm.
because they just need it, and that's okay. It takes a lot of bravery, I think, to
100%.
embrace change. I mean, yeah, what you guys went through moving home, it embraced changed. It needed to embrace change,
Mhm.
and I think because you guys are comfortable with change, that's probably how you were able to make that leap. It's like I grew up as a third culture kid. That's change. I grew up in different schools. That's change. So I'm comfortable with change.
Yeah.
Um, our friends
Mm,
moving away. That,
that's
that's
change.
sad, but
Yeah.
that's change, and there's ways around that, like through
Yeah.
calls and
Yeah.
staying in touch and thinking about our friends.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm fearless. I think because I'm full of fear. Like I'm scared all the time, every day. Like I have anxiety or my hands get sweaty.
Mhm.
I'm scared all the time. But I think, yeah, tackle change with bravery. Like being brave is about
Mm,
facing things that you're afraid of. If you're standing on a ledge and you're afraid of heights and you still, jump off it, I don't think that's brave if you're not afraid. I think
Yeah.
brave is you're afraid already, you're scared to death, but you still make that leap. And I think that's bravery and that's courage.
mm, mm. Let's go
Mm.
through some rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
We didn't send these to you, but
Oh,
I
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
it'd be great to just go through them.
Yeah.
Okay, our first one. Okay, because you're so multicultural, what's your favorite Filipino or Taiwanese dish?
All right, favorite Filipino food would have to be adobo, of course, the national dish.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and favorite Taiwanese food is definitely Taiwanese fried chicken.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, G pie or
Mm,
popcorn
Yes.
chicken with the
Oh my
five
god.
spices, salt,
Taste.
pepper.
My god.
Mm.
delicious.
Speaking my language. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
I love crime. I love crime thriller. I definitely love the whole Veronica Mars vibe, where it's like a teenage girl in high school, but she's secretly a detective. Yeah, definitely crime thriller.
You've traveled so many places around the world. What's your favorite city to travel to?
I can't say it with just a city, but I guess I'll just say Melbourne as a city, favorite city, and favorite country
Mm,
is Japan. Anywhere that's celebrates diversity or weirdness and still find a place within that weirdness.
What's a hobby that you've always wanted to try?
Pottery.
Ooh.
Yeah. And not that kind of pottery.
Come to Vancouver.
We could do both.
Yeah.
Both types.
Ooh.
2 birds with one stone. And then our last question is actually sent from our friend Alvin.
Oh my God,
I
Mr.
know.
Ta'as.
To us. Who is someone that you are grateful to have that you haven't had a chance to acknowledge recently?
It's funny that Alvin asked that question.
Yeah. I mean, he just wanted a shout out.
Yeah.
This is really weird, but I'd have to. The first person that came to mind is actually Quad, our friend Quad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does listen to the pod, I hear.
He does, yeah.
Shout out, Mr. Thick. Just FYI, that's his real last name.
Yeah, that's his last name. What?
Oh my God. Okay. Let's get into You Do or You Don't, a segment where we have something questionable or debatable in life, in society, and we debate about it. So our guest, Mary, go. What is your You Do or You Don't?
You do or you don't believe in superstitions?
I do. I believe in superstitions. I love it. I like don't break the pole. I like don't open an umbrella inside the house or under a roof. I do all of it. Like I don't know. I like knock on wood if I'm like if I say something bad's gonna happen. I freaking love it. I do.
Life is a superstition.
The sun is out. It's gonna be a good day.
Yes.
Mary,
what about you?
Oh, me? I don't believe in superstition.
Oh, it's a you don't.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I just think you make your own destiny. You make your own luck. You know? Yeah. I think they're fun. I think they're definitely very fun. You know, like like Vince said, knock on wood, or they're just like nice little conversation handies to throw in there. But I don't believe in them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, make your
That's
own
okay.
luck.
Yeah, I think it's a you do for me. Just growing up Vietnamese, like we just have so many, I guess, I don't know if they're traditions or superstitions, but around like Lunar New Year too, I think I definitely embrace the superstitions and traditions. So it's a you do for me. Yeah.
Even the bad ones? The bad superstitions?
Are there bad ones? I guess. Yeah. I think I try to like I'm about like energies and I'm not that woo woo, but like
I love woo woo.
But I do embrace superstitions. I think they're fun, and I think it's all about like energies and manifestation for me.
Yeah, I definitely thought you guys would, being like Filipinos love superstitions.
Yeah, I love
And
that shit.
definitely Vietnamese have a lot of symbolism and rituals, which is it's beautiful.
I love it. That's a great you do
Yeah,
what you
that's a
don't,
really
Mary.
awesome one. It's my favorite one so far. Sorry.
No, I can't take credit for that. AJ thought of that. You do or you don't.
Oh, I love it.
Do you want to hear my original you do or you don't?
Yes. Yeah, share it.
You do or you don't take everything that's not bolted down when you stay in a hotel. Take
Like,
all
I
the mini
raid
soaps.
everything. Yeah, literally. I do. Like
I was like, what are you?
Tissue box?
Oh,
like, anything that is not gonna be added cost, I'm like, you're coming with me.
It's a you do, yeah. That
you do as well.
Like
I'm
toilet rolls.
I'm taking these $30 slippers.
Yeah, or anywhere that has like Aesop soap or thank you soap. I actually bring like a little reusable bottle and I like pump the shit out of that into a new bottle and I take it
as
home.
you should.
Yeah.
It's like $50 for a bottle.
In this economy, I would too.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mary, for coming on. There's just so many things that inspire us about like from your story and your transition, your career, your life. Not your transition, sorry.
Call
your
me
career,
Bart.
your career transition.
Yeah.
And I think, just remember you have such an impact on
Both of us.
the world and like us as well,
Yeah.
and kids in your life. So we want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
No, that I just love you guys with all my heart, and I'm just really proud that you guys did this. And when I first heard about it, I was like, yes, this is so you guys. Like, keep expressing yourself, keep being
Yeah.
creative. And also, the thing that I loved about it was a way for you guys to stay in touch.
Yeah,
And
honestly, yeah.
that brings a lot of comfort to me because you guys are away from home. There's times of loneliness. So I just love that this is a way for you two to stay together and keep each other safe and heard.
Oh, thank you, Mary. We love you.
Love you. Oh,
All right. Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you.
Bye. See you on the next
Bye.
episode.